So I'm delighted to welcome Elizabeth Boyle here to the Dingle Peninsula as part of Dingle Literary Festival for 2022. Welcome to the Dingle Peninsula.
Thank you.
How have you enjoyed it so far?
It's been fantastic, absolutely wonderful. Yeah.
It's for me, I suppose it's fantastic to have these events on in the Dingle Peninsula, especially for such creative people like yourselves coming to the Dingle Peninsula. I guess, what would you find yourself about the Dingle Peninsula that would make it unique for writers, maybe coming here for an event like this and meeting authors, or I guess just in general the overall peninsula?
It's a fantastic town, full of interesting people, friendly people. It's been really nice since we got here. We've all been treated so well, and it's just great to come together with other authors and talk shop a little bit, which is nice. And sort of exchange our sort of experiences of the literary festival circuit, as it were. There's a lot of people that I've started to get to know from appearing at the same sort of festivals. But this one has such a nice atmosphere. It's so embedded in the town, and going from sort of pub to pub and bumping into writers in different pubs, and also just people who are attending the festival who've just come up and ask you questions or talk about your book or whatever. So it's a real friendliness and a real kind of diversity of people here, which is fantastic. It's been great. I
suppose one thing that kind of I highlight, I guess, is that it's such a community, and you can tell that a lot of the local community are involved in it. For yourself, is there elements of the Dingle Peninsula maybe that would be completely different to, say, your own upbringing, and what would inspire you as a writer?
Well, I mean, my own upbringing, so I was born in Dublin and I live in Dublin now, and my family is very city people, but I grew up in my childhood in rural Suffolk, and I think rural communities the world over share certain features that are different from city life, and so yeah, coming to somewhere that's quieter and more sort of kind of outside the busyness of city life to some extent is always good for writers. It's always good to slow down a little bit from time to time. And so, yeah, I think that kind of, for me, like rural life really connects with my childhood in a way. So
okay,
it is nice to be somewhere like that here. Obviously, the landscape here is much more dramatic and spectacular than the flatness of Suffolk. Suffolk is a very flat place, and so the contrast is quite beautiful. Two beautiful but different places, you know. But it's yeah, really nice to be here.
You highlighted there the landscape, and I guess what a lot of people say when they come to the Dingle Peninsula is you have the landscape, and then you have the sea, and you have the beaches. There's a lot that I suppose could inspire writers if they spend time here. So what elements of those do you think would be inspirational for writers? Well,
I mean, for me, I come at this as a historian,
yes.
And so for me, the kind of history of the landscape, especially as a medieval historian, that the sea, for me, is a point of connection between peoples, and the mode of transport. Travelling by sea was considerably easier in the Middle Ages than travelling overland often, you know. So for me, it's a place that connects Ireland to the European continent, for example, ancient trading routes and things like that, you know. So the sea is something that speaks to me of like communication and outward lookingness, which I love. But then also, of course, medieval Ireland has a long tradition of like a whole genre of literature called Dingle, which are sort of narrative explanations of place names and how places get their names. And so there's a long history of engaging with landscape features or human relationships with the landscape, and creating a kind of narrative literature out of that, whether it's Dingle in prose or in poetry, or embedded in stories of how places get their names and their identity and so on. And so for me as a medievalist, it's great to come to such a kind of place with a rich cultural tradition.
There absolutely is. I suppose being an Irish speaking area as well, you'd have a lot of writers, but also I suppose historians as well who have written a lot. Is there many I suppose literature from the Dingle Peninsula that you would have, or historian that you would have researched yourself?
Well, I mean, as a medievalist, I use a lot of the work of people like Robin Flower and Kenneth Jackson and kind of the early 20th century scholars of medieval Ireland, and they came to the Blaskets themselves to study the language and to sort of immerse themselves in a Gaeltacht area. So there is a connection along sort of tradition, I suppose, of medievalists coming to the Blaskets, and learning the language and studying the language and its dialect. And that sort of connects me, I suppose, as a medievalist to the work that they did and then through that to the language.
Absolutely, and I suppose you've just highlighted that so many writers would have come from the Blaskets or visited the Blaskets in order to learn the language. I suppose that's one of the main Blasket Island, and obviously they left it in 1953, but it's kind of one of those special places, I think, for a lot of people who come to the Dingle Peninsula, maybe to visit or to stay for a while on the island. Do you think it's something that young writers would be encouraged to do, to maybe come to the Dingle Peninsula, or also spend time maybe further out on like the main Blasket Island, I guess?
Well, one of the things that's been quite interesting at the talks that I've attended at the festival over the past couple of days is the number of writers who've talked about place, uninhabited places, memories, ghosts even, not in a sort of, creaky floorboards way, but in a kind of ghosts of past time.
Feeling characters or people who are connected to that place.
Yeah, the sense of past inhabitants and things like that. And so that seems to be a rich and fertile ground for the imagination that I think could be quite stimulating for writers. There is, the kind of echoes of the past, I suppose, in the present.
Very good. And I suppose you linked back that the town itself has such a diverse range of, be it with shops, locals, community aspect of it. Would you ever consider yourself maybe coming and spending some time here to do research and to write, and then
Absolutely.
What elements of it would you enjoy, do you think?
Well, I was chatting to someone downstairs earlier who was saying the nice thing about the town is that it welcomes blow-ins, as he said, as his words, but that friendliness and welcomingness to outsiders, which is really important in any community, but so to feel welcome somewhere is absolutely great, and as I say, taking a bit of time out from the city to write and engage creatively is always good.
Brilliant stuff. Well, thanks so much for chatting to me today. It's been fantastic.
Thank you.
Great to welcome you to the Dingle Peninsula, and can't wait to welcome you back again. Gurmila Mahagav Chorda. This event has been sponsored by Dingle Distillery. Gurmila Mahagav, Asaf Furtakiach. Your support is really welcomed for this festival, and thanks so much for joining us.